This suitcase isn't going to be big enough," Jenny exclaimed as she looked at the pile of clothes that was laying on the bed. We were getting ready for our honeymoon trip through Europe, well, mostly the UK. We were flying to London on Wednesday night and then a few days in London hanging out before taking a little road trip up to Scotland for Jessica and Paige's wedding. After that we were going to Paris for a few days and then back to London before we came back towards the end of August. But our plans were not of the utmost importance right now. Getting all these clothes sorted to bring what we needed was the most important. We could cut back on some things, just take the essentials, I offered up. And what exactly is essential? Jenny asked me. Is this Man City sweatshirt essential? She asks, and I nod my head. How about these 3 dresses? Or maybe these jeans? How about these skirts? She continues. I finally throw my hands up in the air in defeat. Just about then, Marty appears in the doorway. He looks at the 4 suitcases laying on the bed and hears the discussion. He doesn't say anything but walks over and picks up the phone sitting on the nightstand. Yes, General Mason? It is Marty Thompson. I was wondering if my daughters could borrow a C-130 Starlifter to ship their suitcases on their honeymoon. You don't think the army needs to move anything, do you? Marty is instantly bombarded with various clothing items. Just be nice, Daddy. We are going to be gone for 3 weeks, at least. And you never know what we are going to need, Jenny said to her father. A smile comes to his face. Well, if you are taking everything you need, I guess you won't have to go clothes shopping at Harrods or in Paris. More clothes are launched at my father-in-law, who makes a quick retreat to the hall. After 3 more days of this, we are finally packed and seated in the Delta Sky Club Lounge at MSP, waiting on our flight over to London and the start of our official honeymoon. I only say official, because we really had done nothing since our wedding a month ago. Jenny was checking her email on her phone as I paged through some of the itinerary information for our 3-week tour of England, Scotland, and Paris. As I was looking through everything, I looked over at my wife, still the greatest thought in the world, and asked if she had told Sarah we weren't staying at their flat. Jenny got a guilty look on her face. No. I figured we would tell them when we got there. I shook my head at Jenny as she tried to tap dance out of this one. You lost the coin flip, and it was your job, I told her as I stood to get us each another glass of wine. As I bent over to grab her glass, I whispered, I already told Nikki. This earned me a giggle and a swat in the rear as I walked away. It also earned a groan from an older woman seated near the 2 of us. When I got back, I could see Jenny was upset about something. I asked her what it was. It's that woman back there. Went on and on about how she just couldn't understand how 2 pretty young girls like us would rather be with one another than some man. The disgust in Jenny's retelling was obvious. Jenny had to plead with me to not say something. I still couldn't believe how some of these people could badmouth us. And before I could confront the woman, our flight was called. Unfortunately, the woman and her traveling companion also got up. This was going to be fun. At the gate, they called for the Delta One passengers. The 2 older women practically raced to the front of the line, causing us to laugh. Remembering something from our past, I leaned over and asked Jenny if we are on Southwest this time. The growl from my wife when I mentioned her favorite airline made me giggle. If you mention Burger King, you can sit in tourist, Jenny warned me. I quickly wrapped her in my arms and kissed her on the cheek. The smile I was used to returned and was told I could sit where I was assigned. We boarded the plane and moved into our designated pods 1B and 1C. And it was just our luck, our 2 new friends were sitting right behind us. The pair gave me the evils as Jenny stored her carry-on. I was not going to put up with these 2 all the way to Heathrow. As Jenny turned around, I pulled her in my arms and laid a long deep kiss on my beautiful wife. As we parted, neither one of us said anything but just stared deep into each other's eyes. The moment, though, was broken by the pair behind us. "That is just sick. Can't you two control yourselves?" the woman asked. Feeling a bit mischievous, I looked her in the eye. "Why should we? We are on our honeymoon." I sat down in my pod with a smile of victory. Jenny leaned over and said I was evil before we shared another kiss. "What do you think those two would do if they knew the whole story about you?" Jenny asked. I thought for a moment before coming up with a great answer. I figured I would save that for when they complain about us sharing one pod later. Thankfully, the two women didn't say anything to us on the flight, though we could hear the groans from them as Jenny and I shared our dinners with each other. Maybe we made a bit more of a scene than we normally would, mostly because we were feeling a bit haughty ourselves. We settled down after dinner because while we knew it was only about 7:30 our time, it was 1:30 a.m. in London and we wanted to be fresh and ready to go when we landed. The scene at Heathrow was one that we were becoming used to. After all, this was our third trip here in less than 9 months. That familiarity helped us clear customs easily, while our two new friends were hung up arguing about what they were bringing into the country. But our last laugh with the two didn't come until we were leaving the terminal. While the pair trudged their way to a taxi stand dragging their roller bags behind them, we were met by a driver that Marty had lined up. I gave the two women a little wave and told them to have a good trip. Jenny was laughing as she pulled me into the back seat of the Rolls. "You are evil, Mrs. Quinn Thompson." The two of us giggled away as we were whisked to our hotel. We had decided to go all out on the hotel, even though I still tried to fight her over the cost. "It's our honeymoon, besides we can afford it," Jenny told me. I expressed some doubts over that, then remembered what family I had married into. I had conceded but still thought we were being a bit extravagant. Following the 45-minute drive from Heathrow, the limo pulled up in front of the hotel we were going to call home for the next few days. The doorman in what looked like a morning coat and a bowler hat opened the door for us and we slowly slid out of the back seat. We must have looked funny staring up at the clock tower that stood proudly over the entrance of the landmark hotel. Jenny and I linked hands and proudly walked through the open door. It takes a lot to floor Jenny, but the lobby of this grand old hotel did. The wood-paneled walls and ornate marble that lined the floors was incredible. I heard her whisper a wow under her breath as we made our way to the desk. After going through the standard paperwork, the clerk told us if there was anything that we needed to not hesitate to call. I am sure the young woman said that to every guest, but it seemed genuine. She pointed over to the bellhop who was going to take us up to the suite that we had reserved. And even though I was now part of one of the wealthiest families in the world, I still couldn't believe I was here. The hand that tightened around mine and the smile flashed at me let me know that this was now my life. Once again, our breath was taken away. Our room overlooked Marylebone Station. After tipping the bellhop, we collapsed back on the sofa and took in the room that surrounded us. I leaned over and asked Jenny, "Your grandmother is paying for all this?" And Jenny just nodded her head. "I think this beats sleeping on the air mattress," I exclaimed. Jenny giggled and leaned you against me. After taking a moment to relax, we checked out the suite and hung our clothes. After getting everything settled, we returned to the couch. "So, what do you want to do?" Jenny asked. I just grinned and told my wife that there was only one thing we should do. In unison we yelled out, "Harrods." And that was exactly what we did. We got lost inside the opulent store for the rest of the day. We tried to be good, but it was hard. Besides some casual skirts and tops that we fell in love with, we also had to look for dresses for the wedding. That's where the shopping got serious. We had listened to Nikki and Sarah tell us how hot it had been over here for the last week, and packed light summer dresses. On the flight over we got a copy of the Times and saw that it was supposed to be in the low to mid-60s next week in Scotland. We were not prepared for the forecasted cooler weather and need to modify our wardrobe. I think I could hear Marty groan all the way across the Atlantic. The fun came as we went through the various dresses and looks we were shooting for. We got some interesting stares from both other customers and the clerks as the two of us giggled away as we held up various dresses. Jenny did put out one stipulation. "No purple this time, young lady," my wife stated in a stern voice. I tried flashing Jen the puppy eyes, which had the effect of causing her to break her serious look and get her giggling a bit more. "I'm serious, Lex. You have tons of purple, time to change it up." I nodded at her request because I knew she was right, but I still looked at few purple ones. After about an hour, we had our choices. Jenny had settled on a long-sleeve green dress that featured a baton neckline and billowy sleeves. It was cut right at the knees and she radiated a glow as she modeled it for me. It was form-fitting enough to make me a bit excited, but it was conservative enough to be respectable. Her choice for me though made me question if I was going to be showing a bit too much. Unlike Jenny's dress, the hemline of the dress stopped a few inches above my knees. It looked like an oversized double-breasted suit coat with 6 large brass buttons on the front, 2 of which were placed strategically on either side of the deep V-neck of the dress. "I can't wear this. I will look like a tramp." I verbally protested, but I actually loved the dress. The dress hugged my ever-developing body perfectly. It made me realize how far I had come in my journey. "You look great. You better get that dress. Even if we have to get you another dress for the wedding, you have to get it," Jenny said. I acted like I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted it, but I was getting it. I just had to lead her on like I was trying to decide it. As I stood there admiring my new look, it was then I hit on it. I spun and looked my soulmate in the eyes. "There are 3 things that have to happen for me to get this dress," I told her. She just rolled her eyes and moved closer to me. "Yes, we will get you a new pair of shoes to match the dress," she said. "And a hat," I said. "And a hat." "Hats for both us," she said as she pulled me into her. "And," I said as I wrapped my arms around the most incredible woman in the world, "you have to wear this sometime for me." She giggled before she gave me a long kiss. "I will wear it. Why do I put up with you?" Jenny asked as she gave me another kiss. "Because you love me?" I asked. "More than anything in the world." "Come on and get changed so we can look for a hat and shoes," Jenny said. I slipped away and put back on the clothes I wore to the store and we took off to pick up the requested items. We decided we had done enough damage for one day, so we decided we should head back to the hotel. Plus, we had reservations for dinner later tonight at the Aqua Shard. We gathered our purchases from guest services and caught a cab back to the hotel. A few hours later, after a brief nap and a shower, which of course we shared, we were seated at our table looking at a beautiful sunset as it set over St. Paul's Cathedral. At that moment, Tupelo honeyed by I reached out and took Jenny's hand and smiled. I looked deep into those deep blue eyes that had captured my heart. A smile came across her face, I whispered. "Happy honeymoon, Jen." I woke up to something hitting me in the head and a voice that did not sound very happy. "Shut up, Jenny," I heard Nikki groan as she lay in the other bed in the room. "Was I talking in my sleep?" Jenny said with a hoarse voice. "You snore," Sarah croaked out, causing me to giggle and my wife to defend herself. "I do not snore," Jenny pouted in her little girl voice. I tossed our new pillow to the side and slowly lifted my head and kissed my wife ever so gently on the cheek. "Babe, you snore," I told her. Jenny went into full pout mode. And if I wasn't feeling like I had been hit by a beer truck, I may have sympathized. But I was dying. The four of us had come up to Loch Lomond on Tuesday morning for Jessica and Paige's wedding. I had never ridden a train before, so it was another new experience I was able to experience with Jenny. The ride was easy, and the views were incredible. It was also a better way to spend some time with Snicky. A car would have been just as fun, but this was more relaxing. We enjoyed a few sweet treats and coffee on the ride and made it into Glasgow around lunchtime. Tuesday was a fun time to see everyone. The thing that really hit me was how nervous Jess was and how calm Paige was. Natalie and I were relentless in our teasing of the Baltimore blonde shell, a name I had coined for Jessica that she hated. We got to meet both girls' families, including Haley, Jessica's sister who was going to be freshman at the U this fall. It was a quiet night, but we still found a way to unwind a bit. The wedding the next day had been a blast. Paige and Jessica both looked beautiful. It was such an incredible moment to see two of our friends share their love for each other. The dresses were stunning, and with Loch Lomond in the background, it may have been the most incredible wedding I had ever been to. All three of them. My cousin and his girlfriend had gotten married the summer before my sophomore year at the U, and then there was Julie's wedding last New Year's. That was the extent of my wedding experience. The one I was at this summer doesn't count, mostly because I was one of the brides and I was a wreck. The reception had been out of control. The smiles the brides had on their faces were wonderful to see. The couple had been through some ups and downs, but that was now in the rearview mirror. And it wasn't just the brides who had huge smiles, it was all of us who came to celebrate these two. As the reception went along, Jenny and I were able to relax and enjoy ourselves a bit more than we had at our wedding. The group from Soixante-Trois that had shown up were enjoying themselves immensely, and we heard some more stories about the brides. Jenny and I also got to spend a little more time with Haley and began to give her some tips on the U. When Jessica saw the three of us enjoying a glass of wine together, I think was the only time the smile left her face all night. As the night wore on and the drink flowed more, there were chants for the Venus girls to take the stage. Even Out of Heaven was pushing us to take the stage, but we refused. We preferred to dance as our mode of fun last night. Whether it be the more open dancing of the larger groups on the floor or the more intimate dances Jenny and I were able to share together, we had a great time. That was how we wound up in the shape we were in this morning. Jenny's defiance over the teasing finally lessened and she cuddled into me, and I tried to doze back to sleep, but the pounding of my head stopped that. Also, the rumbling of my stomach told me I needed something to eat. And I wasn't the only one who had that feeling, because I could hear Sarah expressing the same thought. We flipped for it and Snicky got the shower first. We reminded them we had things to do today and not to be in there forever. 45 minutes later, the four of us were refreshed and walking out of the room on our way to breakfast. On our way down, Nikki began to tease me as to how I was dressed. Looking pretty casual there, Alexa. I don't think I have seen you in trainers too many times. And I do like the denim skirt. Deciding to tease a bit today? If it was anyone else, I would be very upset. But this was Nikki. Of course, I had to ask Nikki if she was doing the same thing with her little skater dress. I hope you have something on underneath that thing, Nikki. We wouldn't want you putting on a show, I said. I could hear Jenny groan under her breath about my and Nikki's teasing. When I asked what the problem was, Jenny told me that me and Nikki were worse than me and Danny. We entered the breakfast area and were greeted with a round of applause from the assembled crowd. The four of us stared at each other in panic. We didn't do it again, did we? Sarah asked fearfully. Jenny told her not that she could remember. Nothing on social media at least, Jenny said. That made us all feel a bit better, but there was still something sitting there. When Natalie commented that the stars of the night are here, our panic returned, and it was not helped by the look that Jamie shot Nikki. We took the walk of shame to an empty table in the corner and tried to hide, but it was almost impossible. Someone would look over at us every once in a while with a smile or give us a thumbs up. We were completely on edge as we tried to replay the night amongst the four of us. Then the fun really began. Stephanie and Kayla entered and after getting themselves some food, joined the four of us at our table. They both had smirks on their faces that put the four of us on edge. Nothing was said for what seems like an eternity. Finally, Nikki broke the silence and asked what was so funny. "You guys were good last night," Steph said, the smirk never leaving the singer's face. Nikki buried her head on Sarah's shoulder while Jenny and I slumped back into our chairs. Both Natalie and Jamie both came over at that point for some reason and all four of friends began laughing at the four of us trying to hide in shame. I looked at Nikki and I am sure that the confused look on her face had to match mine. Jamie spoke first. "For once the four of you behaved yourselves. For the most part." Jamie took a seat next to her protégé. Natalie sat down next to Jenny and went on. "The only thing that got a bit crazy was when Nikki and Alexa here were trying to do the Spice Girls moves to stop. That was pretty good. But that was it." Natalie put an arm around Jenny, but I could still see the fear in her eyes. She asked if they were sure that was all they did, and Natalie told her yes. We got everyone in here on the joke. Kayla and Steph were the spies to see when you four finally extracted yourselves from your room. Kayla then pulled out her phone. "One good thing about not being much of a drinker is I can get video. And this one is a private video only meant to tease one person." And with that she hit play and sure enough there was Nikki and I dancing around trying to mimic the legendary British all-girl group, but it wasn't just the two of us trying to mimic the moves. There was a third, who seemed to be leading us. It wasn't Sarah or Jenny, they were seen to the side laughing away. No, it was the famous singer who sat across from us trying to hide her face. "I can't believe I let you four drag me into your antics," Stephanie said as she looked for cover that was nowhere to be found. Her girlfriend was offering no sympathy. Sarah tried to protest, that it was just me and Nikki on video. "It started out as the four of you, but Miss Abbott over here kept telling you that you were doing it wrong. She decided to step in and show you how to do it. Before Kayla could get her phone going you and Jenny had to stop because you were laughing so hard," Jamie told Sarah. Both my and Nikki's wives got smug looks on their faces as the video played on. Natalie began teasing Steph that she needed to do some more work on her dancing and that maybe Nikki and I could give her some lessons. "Stop," Stephanie pleaded. "I got enough from Kayla this morning." She then tried to hide in Kayla's arms. Kayla tried to stop it saying the only promise she made was that it wouldn't go public. The four of us sat back and relaxed. Though we did ask Kayla to send us the video. "Need something to tease Steffi Boots here with," Nikki said. Steph pulled her head out of Kayla's arms and shot Nikki a dirty look. The rest of breakfast kind of went that way. Teasing amongst friends and storytelling, and all four of us who had a reputation for getting into a bit of trouble could relax as it seemed we had behaved ourselves. That fun changed quickly, at least for two of us. The brides walked into the room and the cheers began again. Both Jessica and Paige blushed at the continued love being thrown their way. They had huge smiles on their faces and they held hands as they soaked it all up. It was when Jessica spotted the four of us that her expression changed. She let go of Paige's hand and began making her way over to our table. I could see Paige roll her eyes as she followed her wife over to us. Jessica pointed at me and Jenny and said, "We need to talk." I babbled as the blonde woman stared my wife and I down. Meanwhile, Paige stood behind Jessica shaking her head. "You two shouldn't have been giving Haley anything to drink," Jessica started off lecturing me and Jenny. "She is only 18. Sure, it's legal over here, but she is going to be in school soon and I don't want her out drinking and getting mixed up with the wrong people. It was a line I couldn't let go. Are you saying me and Jenny are the wrong people? I asked, jokingly. Both Jenny and Paige had to stifle laughter at my comment. The angry look came across Jess' face again as she tried to stare me down. That's not what I mean, and you know it, an increasingly upset Jessica blurted out. It was then a new voice entered the conversation and frustrated the new bride even more. What did you mean then? Haley asked her older sister. Jessica spun around and began trying to explain herself. Haley sat down next to her older sister and tried to explain things to Jessica. Yeah, I will be going off to college and I will be experiencing new things, but I am not going to go crazy. I know why I am there. I am there to work my tail off so I can become the lawyer I always dreamed of. But I am going to want to let off some steam. I'm going to drink. I know, but I am going to worry, Jessica said. Haley reminded her sister that she had said that she could trust these two and if she needed anything that she could come to us. Jessica looked at us and sighed. Yes, I did. But I am still going to worry. Don't worry, Jessica, we will watch over Haley like she was our little sister, Jenny told her. That seemed to ease Jessica's mind a bit as she sat back. She did mumble that she was still worried about us teaching her bad habits, which of course got us giggling. Haley stood by with a proud smile as she watched her sister resign herself to the fact that Haley was growing up. Breakfast went back to its normal dull roar, and people came in and out of the breakfast area. After we were finished, we decided to take a walk around the grounds and get a different view than yesterday. Sarah and Nikki begged off, leaving it to the two of us, which was fine by me. Jenny and I assumed what had seemed to be our standard position, holding hands, and went out the door to take in the beauty of the loch. As we were walking around, we bumped into Jessica's parents. We once again complimented the two on what a beautiful wedding it was and what great children they had. Thank you so much, Karen, Jessica's mother said. It's so wonderful that Jessica has so many friends that support both her and Paige. And from what I have understood, you are going to take on another of our daughters. We smiled and nodded. We will keep an eye out for her, but we won't be quite as overbearing as her big sister, I said, which earned a laugh from Jessica's father Calvin. I think that would be impossible. Jess is very worried about her little sister, but she has said knowing that the two of you will be nearby has eased her motherly instincts a bit. Calvin stopped for a moment. Never thought I would say that, but it feels right. Jenny and I both smiled at that. I tried to help ease Mr. Tyler's mind by saying I had two brothers who never thought they would have to watch over their little sister. Jenny jumped in at that point to carry the point on a bit further. Actually, Lex's one brother jokes that he wouldn't have from no sisters to two he has to worry about. And put up with, Jenny said as she tightened her grip on me. A smile came across the Tyler's face. I think that our truthfulness was easing their concerns about Haley a bit as well. We continued talking with the two all the way back to the hotel, and once we entered the lobby, I ran off to the desk and grabbed a piece of paper so I could write down all our phone numbers for Calvin and Karen. Just in case you can't get a hold of Haley, you can pretty much track us down. They thanked us again and we started to make plans to get together when they came to town in a few weeks to get Haley settled in. Just as Calvin and Karen started to head off, Paige and Jessica showed up. What was that about? Jessica asked, and thankfully we were able to ease her motherly concerns. We assured her we were just giving her parents all our contact numbers, just in case. I tried to tease my friend a bit about it. Don't worry, we are on the case, I said, which earned me another look and a reprimand from Paige to Jessica that we really did want to help. We sat down in the lobby and were soon joined by Snicky as well as some of the other guests and went back into normal conversations that mattered, like the night before. As the hazy memories of the night before came more into focus, the conversation slowly died. That was when Paige stepped up. "So, what is everyone's plan?" "I want to show you Scotland," Paige said. We tried to tell her that wasn't necessary, she was still celebrating her wedding and that her and Jessica should be given some space, but Paige would have none of it. "I don't know when I will get all my friends up here again, besides I have my whole life to be with my beautiful blonde lass," Paige declared as she reached around Jessica's shoulders and the two shared a kiss, earning an awe those gathered around. We all took off for rooms to get our purses and a coat. We met back in the lobby and in no time we were let out of the hotel and walked to a bus that took us back to Paige's hometown Dumbarton. It was a pretty little town and I can see why Paige wanted to show it off. We hit several little quaint shops and did some sightseeing. The Dumbarton Castle was neat looking, and Jenny and I made a deal to come back and visit sometime so we could check it out some more. We found a 29-year-old bottle of signatory vintage scotch from the Dumbarton distillery that we knew we had to get for Marty. It was when we were walking up to an area with a few pubs and other shops that one of my biggest fears came to the fore. "Okay, girls, especially you Yanks. It's time you experience a quintessential Scottish delicacy." Paige flashed us an evil grin. Here it was, I was going to be forced to eat haggis. And while it would be funny to watch Jenny try and eat the dish, I was scarred that my reaction would be much worse. But Paige threw us a curve. She led us into a little shop and the first thought that came to my mind was the state fair. Those thoughts were confirmed as Paige slid up to me and Jenny, laughing her head off. "You should have seen the looks on your faces. You thought I was going to have you eat haggis, didn't you?" We nodded. "I wouldn't be that cruel. No, I am going to treat you to a deep-fried Mars bar." Jenny had no idea what Paige was talking about. "It is a deep-fried candy bar," our Scottish friend said. "They have those at the state fair," I said. Paige told me that may be true, but Scotland was the birthplace of this delicacy. We all enjoyed a sample of the sweet treat, enough where I think we overwhelmed the poor gentleman who ran the place. I know we overwhelmed his teenage assistant who couldn't stop taking his eyes off the loads of gorgeous young women standing around eating a deep-fried candy bar, and that's when a new feeling came over me. In the past, when I was around all or many of these women, I would somehow feel that I didn't belong in the same league as them. I was not as pretty as the rest of these girls, I was a wannabe. But this time I realized I am one of these beautiful women and that I belonged. A smile came to my face as I enjoyed the laughter and friendship. I felt Jenny slide up next to me and give me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Yes, you are as beautiful as everyone in this whole group. In my opinion you are the most beautiful," she whispered before going back to a conversation with Zoe. How does she do that, I thought? How does she know what I am thinking? Then I remembered something. I will have the rest of my life with her trying to figure it out. Paris had been great. Alexa and I had spent enough money to really make Daddy mad, but we didn't use his card for a change. We had bought it all on Alexa's credit card. Well, at least until we maxed it out. We did do a little damage to the family card, but for the most part we were good. After 3 days of touring the City of Lights we had on our way to the place I was excited to take Lex, Disneyland Paris. Saying Alexa had a love for Disney would be an understatement. We had been to Walt Disney World twice already and were already thinking about another trip this winter. And every time we went to the Mall of America, we had to stop at the Disney store and she rarely came out of there without at least a DVD. This trip was to be different though. This time we were in Paris and I had a little surprise up my sleeve for later. After another day of wandering along the Seine, we packed our bags and began our journey to Disneyland Paris. We had decided to ship all our purchases back to London. So, we could still to travel light. Once again, Alexa's small-town ways, or as I like to tease her cheapness, conflicted with my plans. I had ordered a car to drive us to the Disneyland Hotel, which, while a bit on the extravagant side, was a lot better than Alexa's idea. We can just take a train to the park. We don't need spend all that money, Lex pouted. I walked over to her with a big smile on my face. I love you, Lex, but you lost this one. This is our honeymoon, and I am not going to let the love of my life be delivered to her magical place via commuter train. The limo arrived, and we let the driver take our bags while we slid into the back seat of the car. Just like I had ordered, there was a bottle of champagne chilling on ice. We enjoyed the sparkling wine as we worked our way through Paris and out to Disney's European theme park. We pulled through the gates of the Mouse's Parisian home and up to the entry of the Disneyland Hotel. We decided that we would wait until morning to explore the parks, giving us some time to rest up. I would say to do a little research, but Alexa had read just about everything she could find since we made these plans. The check-in process was a little difficult. My plans had been made during a phone conversation I had made before we left Minneapolis and were not for the ears of certain people. Thankfully, my high school-level French and Alexa's excitement allowed me to keep my surprise a secret. We went to our room and got settled in before deciding to head over to Disney Village to find something to eat and to, of course, do a little shopping. We wandered around and looked for something good to eat. We were surprised at how American-themed all the choices were. There was even a rainforest cafe, which had started at the Mall of America. We finally settled on a 50s-themed dinner that was lots of fun, though a bit overpriced. The food wasn't too bad, and it felt kind of good to have a taste of home. We wandered through the various shops. And while we both wanted to buy lots of things, we had made an agreement during this expedition not to buy anything until visiting the parks. We used this as a scouting excursion, so we could plan our later destruction. We were back in our room and tucked in bed early as we had a big day ahead of us. The day started with the first implementation of my plan. When Alexa was getting dressed, I let out a scream. Mouse! I yelled out. Alexa giggled. Of course, there is a mouse. It's Disneyland, she said with a laugh. I shoot her a slightly annoyed glance. I am not talking about Mickey. I just saw a mouse. We have to switch rooms. I demanded. Lex rolled her eyes but nodded. She knew how much I hated mice. I grabbed the phone and called the front desk and demanded that we get a different room. Alexa just groaned as I spoke with the front desk in French. Once again, she was thrown off enough that I was able to put part one of the plan into motion. I hung up and told Alexa to get repacked and that guest services would move our luggage for us and our room would be waiting when we got back. Lex was a little miffed that she had to pack her bag, but as usual was always sucker for me when I start kissing her and batting my eyelashes. The great thing about this hotel was that it was right at the entrance of the park. I mean right there. Alexa was over the top as we made our way through the lobby to the special entrance to the entrance plaza right outside the Disneyland train station. As we passed through the turnstiles, I could see the pure joy on Alexa's face as we entered the park. I reached down and grabbed her hand and began leading her into the park. She whispered a thank you to me as we walked underneath the train station and onto Main Street, USA. I began walking towards the left side of the square. Lex wanted to stop and get some pictures with the various characters as they waited for the park guests to enter. Please, Jen. Alexa whined a bit. There's Belle. I never got a picture with her before. I smiled inwardly as I dragged my wife into the storybook store. We can go shopping anytime, Jen. I want to get my picture taken. Lex pouted. I shook my head as I thought about how girly Lex had become and how much of a little girl she could be when we're at Disney. I ignored her pleas and walked to a special desk set up at the back of the store. May I help you? A red-headed girl with a light French accent asked in English. Lex was ignoring me as I began speaking. She was too busy looking around the store. Yes, we have an appointment for a princess makeover for the two of us, Alexa and Jenny Quinn Thompson. I told the woman. Lexa's head snapped around in shock at my words. She stared at me for the longest time while the girl went on about what was going to happen. I smiled at the love of my life as I watched what was going to happen when it sunk in. I could see a tear start to form in her eye and I pulled her towards me. Now everyone will see you as how I see you, a princess, I said before placing a light kiss on her cheek. The tears started to really form. I whispered for her to stop, but she couldn't. The cast members stood and invited us back into the dressing area. I wiped a tear from Alexa's cheek as I pulled her along. Come on, babe, it's time that for you to claim your kingdom. For the next half hour, the two of us were primped and prodded by two cast members. I made a joke that it was worse than when the girlies did this at our wedding. No, it's not. Nikki and Katie aren't here tightening the laces of my waist cincher, Alexa said with a giggle. Being Disney, nothing was risque at all, but there was an image that needed to be maintained. Our waists were pulled to their intended size and we were led over to where the beautiful dresses were hung. One was the two-toned lilac dress of Sleeping Beauty, the other was the beautiful blue gown of Cinderella. I don't know if it was habit or what, but Alexa moved towards the Sleeping Beauty dress. That's one mine, I said. You would have thought I had said the sky is green by the confusion on Alexa's face. I stepped over to her and gave her a light kiss on the lips. You are the true star today. Your gown is that one. Lex looked at me with a look of shock. She practically pleaded with me to switch dresses. I just shook my head. You're the true princess. Let's get dressed and go see your kingdom. Lex walked over to the blue dress and allowed herself to be zipped into the gown. We walked over to the large mirror that was in the dressing area and the two of us stared into it, just like at home. With Alexa's hair becoming lighter with all the time we spent at the lake, she looked perfect and I let her know that. We were led out of the shop and waiting for us was a horse-drawn carriage. I didn't even realize that this was part of the deal. Two men in full livery stood there and helped us into the back. Once we were settled, the carriage began a trek up Main Street, USA. I felt like I was in a parade. Little girls stood along the street, pointed up at the two of us and waved. I waved back, but it took a little bit to get Alexa to break out of her shell. But by the time we made it to the castle, she had become a big ham. When we disembarked the carriage, there were more people waving and some asking to have their pictures taken with us, including a few young men. We obliged everyone, including the boys, but it was the ones with the little girls that really made Alexa's true personality come up. She was soaking up all the attention and it made me feel proud. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. We were treated like royalty as we toured the park. We were able to move to the front of the line on every attraction and we were constantly stopping for pictures. It was fun watching Alexa get into it, as she seemed to get the most attention, even from the various males who wanted their pictures taken. But I wasn't nervous. I knew that she was all mine, a point she reminded me of several times throughout the day. After a long day, we made our way back to the storybook store to return to our normal lives. That was when the latest surprise came from my wife. We were told we could keep the dresses. The cast handed us a bag that included the clothes we came in and 2 dress bags, so we could transport them home. We thanked the cast members and began our stroll back to the next surprise of our little vacation. As we were walking back, Lex did get an evil look on her face. I can't wait to get home and wear our dresses for Danny. That will really blow his mind. The two of us laughed all the way back to the hotel where I sprung my last trap. We checked in at the front desk and were given the key card to our new room. Alexa was too busy talking to a family with a blonde-hair Spitfire who appeared to be 7 or 8 to hear what room we had been assigned. I pulled Alexa from her new friend and led her up to the room. We opened the door and Alexa stood in shock, staring into the deluxe princess room I had lined up for the rest of our stay. The view was wonderful. It was of the castle all lit up. I had to practically drag Alexa into the plush room. "Jen, what is this?" she asked as I pulled her over to the balcony. I rested my head on her shoulder as we stood and stared out at the castle. I reached over and kissed her on the cheek. "I just wanted to show you how special you truly are. You like to tease me that I am a princess, but you truly are a princess." "I love you, Lex," I said as I rested my head on her shoulder again. I was truly the happiest person at the happiest place on earth. And the best part, it would only get better. I woke up to the alarm. It took me a minute to realize I was in our bed back at the apartment. We had been running so much for the last 3 months it always took me a moment to figure out where I was. Jenny and I had not been to the state fair yet this year, our honeymoon going a bit longer than originally planned, so we decided we would go on the Sunday before Labor Day. Since Jenny was starting her master's classes on Tuesday and I was starting my new job at the foundation, we decided we should get back into a normal mode and get the apartment organized. We had not really spent much time here all summer, so it took a few days of cleaning and trying to figure out what to do with Katie's old room. By Saturday afternoon, the apartment was cleaned up and everything was in its proper place. We had decided that we had earned our trip to the fair. "Jenny, get up," I said as I shook my beautiful wife. Instead of the usual, playful toddler voice greeting me, I got a groan. "Why do we have to go so early, Lex?" Jenny said as she straightened up in bed. I wrapped my arms around her and kissed her on the cheek and explained that we wanted to beat the crowds. She groaned once more. "You're lucky I love you," she said before she got up and headed towards the bathroom. That was when my soulmate woke up. She turned and looked at me with a sly grin. "Well, aren't you coming?" An hour later, we were showered and dressed and making our way towards the bus stop and hopped the shuttle over to the fairgrounds. We had not paid attention to the forecast and the morning was a bit overcast. "You girls are going to get wet today," an older woman advised. We told her we would be fine. We exited the bus and began making our way over to 2 stops. The first was a coffee booth to get our morning brew, and then to get our breakfast, mini donuts. After a proper start, we began to make our way over to the animal barns, so we could shoot this year's biggest boar and go see one of the 4-H entrants. "Hey girls," Ashley said excitedly as we shared hugs with my teenage cousin. "How was London? Did you go to a big party? How was Jessica and Paige's wedding? Did you go to Disneyland Paris?" The questions were firing in a non-stop, rapid-fire mode. We tried to calm her as we took seats on the beat-up lawn chairs that sat in the sheep pen that Ashley had basically called home for the last few days. Jenny began telling her the tales of our honeymoon as I tried to quickly edit the pictures on my phone. "So, what time do you show your lamb?" I asked, trying to steer the conversation in a different direction. She told us noon, but she had to do some things before then. We told her we would be there. "And when it's done, we'll take you for a malt or something." That perked her up a bit. We hugged her goodbye and left the barn, but not before checking out some of Ashley's competition. As we left the barn, we could see the clouds building and rain appeared imminent. "I hope we can get somewhere before we get wet," Jenny said. I pulled out my phone and pulled up the 5 Eyewitness News app. I looked at the radar and said we had some time and began making our way across the fairgrounds. We did stop to get the first round of Sweet Martha's cookies. We enjoyed the treat as the sky began to mist a bit. And just as we entered the grandstand, the skies opened. The building soon became packed with people trying to stay dry on this Sunday morning. We browsed the various wares that vendors were selling throughout the grandstand. We had to stop and watch the man and the miracle kitchen. The kitchen gadget had been a staple at the fair years. When I said we needed one, Jenny looked at me like I was crazy. We have a Cuisinart food processor that we got as a wedding gift we haven't used, but I was not to be deterred and went and bought one after we enjoyed the salsa that the demonstrator had made. Jenny just shook her head at me as I strutted through the crowds with my prize. It wasn't long before we came across another staple of the grandstand, the Televac 86,000. The handwriting analyzer had been here as long as I could remember, and I even remember my father admonishing me when I had done it when I was about 13 with Katie. The damn thing has been around since I was a kid. You just pissed away a couple of bucks. Jenny pushed me hard to do it. Come on, Lex. Let's do it. I was still fighting her on it, but she reminded me that all of this was new to her. I finally relented and gave the man the money. We each signed our name on the slip of paper and handed them over so he could run them through the analyzer. It looked like some prop from a bad 1960s sci-fi show. We waited for our signatures to be processed, and after a few minutes they popped out. We didn't real care about the horoscope, since we were both Virgos, but more interested in what our signatures said. What does it say about you, Lex? Jenny asked. I looked down and began reading. You are a caring, honest person who will do anything for your family and friends. You are loyal to those around you, I read aloud. Jenny began laughing and said that the machine was accurate. Let's see about that, I replied. What does yours say? It says you are an outgoing person who not afraid to state their mind or try new things. You are compassionate and dedicated. But you also have a tender side that comes out to special people. Jenny had a smile a mile wide as she read this. I knew that once again I had lost another discussion with my wife. We continued fighting through the ever-increasing crowds that had entered the grandstand seeking shelter from the storm. We passed by another boat that instantly got our attention. They were toy horses with wheels on the feet. And when kids bounced on it while seated, the horse moved. Those are so cute. I wish we knew someone we could get it for, I said as we watched a little girl laughing away as she propelled the toy horse across the booth. We can get it for Jenny. Jenny squealed out. When I said I thought she was too big for it, I got a slap on the shoulder. Not me, Jenny Thomas. I knew who she meant, but I had to tease Big Jenny a bit. That's too much. Sandra has already warned us not to send over any more toys. Not that she doesn't appreciate the thought, but that Jenny has enough. I distinctly remember the little lecture we received from Mrs. Thomas when we came back from Disneyland Paris with a Cinderella dress for my wife's namesake. Sandra wasn't mad, just concerned that we were spoiling her youngest daughter. Jenny agreed with my reasoning but still pouted a bit. I went over and gave her a hug and a kiss. Maybe for Christmas? I offered. I knew there was a reason I married you, Jenny said as a smile returned to her face and we shared a bit longer kiss. That's just disgusting, a woman looking at horses exclaimed. Her husband had a different thought. He had a bewildered smile on his face. As much as I wanted to say that it appeared he liked it, I bit my tongue. Before we could respond, she stormed off with her husband close on her heels. We blew off our latest confrontation and continued our tour of the grandstand. The temperature of the grandstand area increased, as did the number of people. We made our way towards the east end of the grandstand. It looks the rain is letting up. Maybe we can make it to Fan Central or the U booth? I commented. We talked a bit and decided we would make a move to get to the U booth, just a few blocks away. We had to fight a few raindrops, but we made it into the booth. There wasn't much going on this early in the morning, except for the sale of yellow plastics bags with the block M on them being marketed as rain ponchos. Jenny said we should get some, but I told her it was a waste of money. I'm even getting hot, I say as I pull off the quarter-zip long-sleeve shirt I had been wearing and tie it around my waist. But we wander around, we do see a couple of people that we know and chat with them a bit. And after deciding that we don't need anything, we decided to make a move for our next stop, Fan Central. Jenny succumbed and bought a rain poncho before we left. I teased her, but she said she refused to get wet. You are not going to get wet. It's just around the corner. Once again, I should have listened to my other half. We took off from the U of M booth and made our way back down Dan Patch. Just as we were in a no man's land, the skies opened. I gave out a bit of a screech as I became soaked. Jenny laughed the whole distance we needed to cover as the rain drenched me to the bone. I was not a happy camper as we entered the building housing all of Minnesota's pro sports teams, save for Twins. Jenny just laughed at me as we stood there, but it didn't take long for a look of panic to come over her face. "Lex," she screamed out. I asked her what. She didn't say anything but just pointed. I looked down and saw that I could probably enter a wet t-shirt contest. I was so wet. I looked up in horror and found Jenny standing there with a mischievous smile. "I don't mind the look, babe, but I don't want to share," she said. "Haha, very funny. We have to do something." I almost screamed. Jenny just rolled her eyes and pulled me towards the back of the building to one of the two reasons we came here, the Minnesota United. I received lots of admiring glances from the several boys, of all ages, who occupied the building. Thankfully there was a girl about our age working the United booth. She let out a little giggle. "Need something dry?" she asked. Before I could say anything, Jenny pointed to a secluded corner. I could hear her giggle with the girl as I tried to hide myself as much possible. I could hear the girl tell Jenny it would be no problem to use their back area to change. A second later Jenny came back with a United t-shirt and pushed me into the back area used for storage. "Strip," she ordered. I was getting more upset as time went. At Jenny, at the rain, but mostly at myself. "Are you going to listen to me now?" she asked. My defiant attitude quickly as I changed out of my wet shirt. I nodded my head like a little girl who had been reprimanded. I dried myself off as best I could with the little golf towel that Jenny had also bought and then pulled on the Minnesota United FC t-shirt. I had been planning to buy one for our friend Natalie, but now I guess I was getting on too. Jenny gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and whispered, "Better." We returned to the booth and did some more shopping. As we were walking away from the United area and heading over for the Wild area, the two of us received a few boos on my new shirt. We both giggled a bit. I will admit that some boys finding me attractive gave me a little boost, though not as much as Jenny's comment to the guys booing. "Sorry guys, she's all mine," she told them as she wrapped her arms around me. The one thing I had forgot was that the Vikings now had their own building, which was 2 buildings down, so after looking at a few more things we went to the Vikings HQ. Once again we had to control ourselves from buying anything for a certain namesake in London. It was hard but decided we could buy the cheerleader costume for Jenny as a Christmas present, if we didn't get the horse. We looked at the time and realized we still had 2 hours to kill before Ashley showed her sheep, so we went on our food run. We tried to not eat as much as we did a year ago, but there were so many things we needed to eat. I was smart and did not get the onions on the foot-long hot dog this time, and we each had a pronto pup. We mixed in some of the other favorites as we toured the fairgrounds and loaded up. The sky had cleared and turned this into a beautiful day. We looked at the various booths and award-winning foods and crafts in the education/arts and crafts building. We sampled more food and just walked hand in hand enjoying the day. We started to make our way to the animal show area when Jenny's phone rang. "Hey Katie? You guys are here? Where?" "We will be right there," Jenny said to our former roommate and best friend. I just started to walk towards the commissary building and Café Caribe, as I knew that is where my brother, Katie's fiancé, would want to be. Jenny just laughed and said, all of you Quins must think alike. I stopped and pulled her in for a kiss. Get used to it, because you are one now too. It was the first time I had ever said that to Jenny. She got a proud smile on her face. You're right, I am. Come on Quinn, let's go see the rest of the family. And we proceeded to the beer garden. We told my brother and his fiancée the story of my t-shirt, which got my sister practically rolling on the floor laughing at me. You are so dingy sometimes, Allie, Katie said to me, before giving me a hug. It's okay, you will learn, she said as she continued to laugh. Her fiancé, on the other hand, was in no laughing mood. What were you thinking? Flaunting yourself like that. You're a married woman, my brother told me, which got me in a laughing mood. But as I got control of myself, I realized that life kept getting better. Getting teased by my family and my brother being protective of me. It showed just how much they all cared about me. Especially my beautiful blonde wife, now holding her sides, she was laughing so hard. At me. You are such a liar. I told my wife as we entered her family's large estate on Lake Minnetonka. I am not a liar, Jenny said, slightly annoyed by the argument we were having. The honeymoon over already? Jenny's father asked with an amused laugh as we entered the great room. I walked over to my father-in-law and gave him a kiss on the cheek as a greeting. Hi, Marty. No, the honeymoon is still active, it's just that your daughter is a traffic menace, I said, turning back towards my wife who was moving to greet her father in a similar way. Hi, Daddy. No, we are just having an ongoing disagreement about my driving, Jenny said as she sat down on one of the couches. I dropped my bag next to the couch and cuddled in next to my wife, proving to Marty that not all was lost. I was teasing Jenny that she has never stopped at that four-way up at Highcroft. She just rolls right on through, I state. You are so full of it, Missy. I stop every time. You are just too busy playing on your phone like a teenager ALY to know what is going on. We give each other a raspberry and cuddle into each other once again. Marty's laughter gets even heavier. You two are amazing. Even when fighting, you still can't stop loving one another, can you? We had come out to the lake for the weekend to spend a little quality time with Marty. If the Vikings were on the road, we would usually come out on Saturday night and then hang out and watch the game. But since there wasn't a lot going on around campus and Katie and Danny were sneaking off for a romantic weekend, we thought we would head out a day early. And while coming out was a good idea, it was a spur-of-the-moment thing. That had also caused a bit of an argument back at the apartment, since I work about 5 miles from the house. Daddy will be happy to see us, Jenny explained when she presented the idea. When I asked her why she didn't come up with the idea about 3 hours ago, she got quiet and looked for a million excuses. Finally, she admitted she didn't want to drive out alone. It's always better with you, she said as she cuddled up to me. I was done, and I knew it. So here I was, back in Wayzata a few hours after I had left. We sat and enjoyed a drink with Marty and heard the tales of his trip to Washington, where he had met with members of the Senate over the most recent tariffs on U.S. agriculture products by foreign countries. The man is taking us down the crapper, Marty said emphatically. Jenny and I giggled at each other over Marty's views on our current president. And in more proof the two of us thought the same way, we both said drink at the same time and broke out in laughter. What's so funny? Marty asked. It took us a moment to get ourselves under control. Do you remember our friend Paige? Jenny asked. The Scottish girl? Marty asked. That's her, I said. Well, she loves everything about America, except for our president. As a matter of fact, she hates him. She will go on and on about him unless you stop her. So, Jessica and their friends have come up with a punishment. If she starts going off on the orange fart, as they call him, Paige must finish off her drink. Marty looked at us for a moment and then finished off the bourbon in his hand. That was pretty good. I may have to talk about the wall next. This was how the night went. The three of us continued to sit around and just talk. It was amazing how far Marty had come in the almost 2 years since I had met him. Before he was standoffish, now he was willing to tease me just like he would Jenny. Tonight, it was my shoe shopping. I saw an UPS truck when I was driving home this afternoon. Was today a regular Friday delivery? I gave him a fake laugh and made a face at him, which got him laughing. But I could see something else in his smile. Pride, and it got to me a bit. Jenny must have noticed it and hugged me a bit closer. Marty stood and announced he was hungry. Well, Daddy, you sent Martha home already, and the other cook for you has had a few too many, Jenny said, giving me playful tickle in the side. Should we just get a pizza? Marty thought that sounded good and went to make the order. When he came back, he found the two of us going through the mail that we had avoided the last few days. I noticed an envelope from the management company of our apartment. As I read the letter, I let out a sigh. I had forgotten that we never renewed our lease last spring. We had just let it roll over for another 6 months. Now they wanted to raise our rent by 15%. I am not paying $1,500 a month for that place. Jenny said, "We need to start looking. Maybe one of those new apartments on Washington, by Debbie's office," she offered up. I nodded and mentioned that maybe we should look for our own house. We can afford it. Besides, I saw a cute little bungalow over by the Witch's Hat the other day, I said. As we were debating our options, I could see Marty was mulling something over. I continued to pass ideas back and forth with Jenny over our future living situation, but never took my eye off Marty. After a few minutes, I saw a resolve come over my father-in-law's face. He spoke up. "I have an idea." Jenny and I turned towards him. "What if you moved back here?" Jenny and I were in shock. This had never even crossed our minds. We asked him why. "Well, it is crazy for you guys to go out and spend all that money. You are here almost every weekend, and I am sure next summer you will be out here, if you aren't in London." Jenny and I blushed over that. But we weren't the only ones to blush. Marty was about to as well. "Besides, I miss you too." Nothing was said between Jenny and me. We shared a smile and moved off to hug the man who was always there for us. It had been decided. As Marty was hugging me, he whispered into my ear, "Welcome home, Alexa." Saturday, Jenny dragged me around looking at all the rooms of the house. I could see she was up to something but kept my mouth shut. When we sat down to dinner that night, I could see that Jenny had a plan. Why else would she have decided that we should make the O'Hara fried chicken recipe? I let Jenny take control of the meal and only gave her some backup, but she did a great job. The meal, however, did put her father on alert. "What are you two up to?" he asked as we sat down. I shook my head because I truthfully had no clue. My better half did. "Well, Daddy, if we are going to move in here, there are a few things that need to be changed," Jenny informed her father. He plopped some mashed potatoes on his plate and urged his daughter to go on. "Well, first thing, we need to do something with all of Mom's clothes, and I think we need to fix up a lot of the rooms. It's time that we modernize a few things around here." Just as she was saying this, the true owner of the house came in to join us for dinner. "Sorry I am late, but what is this talk about modernizing things around here?" Mary asked as she gave both Jenny and I hugs and took her seat and reached for the corn. We got notification that our landlords want to raise our rent and it is way too much for that place. When we mentioned this, Marty thought we should move in here, I said. I could see a smile come to my grandmother-in-law's face and a comment that it was about time he said that he was lonely. Marty blushed a bit as his mother looked at him. You know it is true, Martin. And if the girls are going to move in, they are going to want to put their stamp on this house, she said as she addressed her son. She then turned to us. But you two know that there are some things that must remain. There will be no additions or alterations to the exterior. We nodded in understanding. Now what do you two have planned? Mary asked. Jenny went on about some of the changes that needed to be made. I knew that Jenny was anxious to begin on the renovations, but I had no idea how excited. Sure, we had spent more of the weekend discussing some ideas of what we could change, but that was it. The big clue that she wanted to move forward was when I got a text Thursday afternoon at work from Jenny telling me to come to the house as soon as I could get out. I really didn't have much going on, so I checked with Bridget before I headed over to the house to meet up with Jenny. Why are we meeting here? I asked. I have a contractor coming to go over the changes we want to make, Jenny told me. When I asked why she was pushing it so much if we weren't moving in until after Christmas, she responded, I want everything done before we move in. Just then Marty walked through the door. His protests were the same as my questions about the urgency of having a contractor come. I don't mind getting a jump on things, but you two need to use a little control and I hope this contractor understands that I have the last say in all of this. Jenny just nodded at her father, which was a clear sign that she was blowing him off. That point was driven home even further as Martha led the contractor into the house. Hey Marty, nut jobs. What's so urgent I needed to get up here right away? Danny asked. Marty threw up his hands and walked out of the room muttering that he gives up while his daughter stood there proud as a peacock. I just shook my head as my wife took my brother by the arm and began leading him upstairs. Well, Danny, there are a few changes we want to make.